in a rock band. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Before I came to Yeshiva, I spent 7 years touring as the lead singer of a pop punk group in Los Angeles. That was like my life. Like my whole life was, and in a lot of ways still is, music. And we were signed, we were playing. I don't know if I date myself by saying the bands that we were like on tour with, but there were groups like Plain White Tees and Yellow Card and Newfound Glory and like that kind of like pop punk Green Day scene, that whole thing.
Uh-huh.
And then I had my own awakening, which I'm happy to share with you at some point. It's kind of also one of these longer stories. But when I had it, and it was clear that I had to leave, so we were also booked up to go on a tour, and there was a band at the time called Good Charlotte, which we were like really excited about going out with, and then having to leave, I couldn't sneak out, and that meant my agent and the PR and the manager of the record label and our manager and every one of my friends. And it was like catastrophic. Like my entire social network turned on me in 5 minutes. The moment people found out that I was leaving, it was like, nobody's happy. You know, I had a couple core friends, not people in the business, but like everybody who was more or less involved in the music industry, which was my life for almost a decade. It's hard. So I get it. The judgment, the feeling. I went back to Los Angeles for the first time in 12 years last year, and no one wanted to see me still.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like I'm missing a big part of your story, which is, why did you leave?
Yeah, I mean, the reason was because at the record release party, I guess I've never told them this, and at some point I guess they're gonna find out. But at the record release party of our last album that we put out, my guitar player came over to me, and he was holding a beer, and he was like, "Hey, how long are we gonna do this for, man?" And which was like a weird thing to ask at all. And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "How long are we gonna play music for?" I said, "I don't know. We'll play music till we're successful, and then we'll settle down." Like, I don't know. I was 18. Like, you don't think about that. You just like, I was passionate. I love to sing. I love what we're doing. Like, that's what we're doing. And I felt a calling, to be someone who was, on a stage and sharing. And this is what I was doing. Like, I wasn't thinking about anything else. And he said, "When's that?" And I said, "When's what?" And he said, "When's success?" And I said, "Why don't you grab another beer and get out of my face? Like, you're ruining my buzz. Like, what are you doing?" And, but that question stuck with me. I woke up with it the next morning, and then like basically every day for the next couple of weeks, kept thinking, okay, when is success? When is success? I never thought about it before. And then I did what every, good Jewish boy does. I went and I did the math. And I went to research like my top 10, like famous artists that have like done what I was trying to do. And while I was looking up, how many singles they had to have had, and how many top 10s, and how many number ones, and how many tours, and I was looking up all these like basic things, which I never thought of doing before. I just wanted to play. But while I was doing that research, I was finding out all these things about that whole culture that I wasn't excited about. Like in terms of family, most of them were either never married or married multiple times, never had children, or had children with multiple people, had suffered from some form of addiction, had suffered from anxiety, depression, etc., had either attempted to or had taken their life, meaning it was bad. I looked at the paper when I was done, and I was like, okay, so basically what I want out of my life is a sad, angry life where I probably will kill myself. Like, that was basically the setup, and that was a very harsh realization for a 19-year-old kid at the time, to recognize that most people who succeed in this business don't succeed in what I would call deep success, right? Inner success. And that shook my world in a big way. At the same time, I started looking into spirituality and deeper ideas. I was raised on the heels, it's really, I owe my mother, and my father, but really my mother, who happens to be clairvoyant, and like, instead of, Dr. Seuss, it's Chicken Soup for the Soul. Instead of, listening to whatever radio station, on the way to school, it was listening to Deepak Chopra and Eckhart Tolle and Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay and all her, her Hay House friends, like, that was like my mom, and she's the best.
Wow.
so when I started kind of having to go through my own experience of that at probably at the time I was like just turning 20, and made the decision that if I wanted to have the life of meaning and, like you said, fulfillment that went beyond external success, I had to go somewhere else. I didn't even know where to go. But because of my background, and I'd spent time in yeshiva high school, and all my friends after high school went to spend a year in Israel. I was the one who stayed to become a singer. So then I thought, okay, I'll go to Jerusalem. There's got to be something there. I was pretty inspired at the time by some of the ideas that I'd seen in Hasidus. And then when I showed up, I fell in love. That was it. Like, it was love at first sight. You know, I got off the flight. I ended up in yeshiva. I went to Machon Yaakov almost 13 years ago. And once I started learning and seeing what was here and being in this environment, I was sold.
Wow. It's hard to explain how there's this like magnet in a Jew that draws them to Israel. You know, religious, not religious, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, doesn't matter. Even, you know, when kids do birthright, there's something about being in Israel that lights up a person's soul. And you because you can't put it into words, I'm just like, I have to believe that it's just God. It's a vortex. He does something.
Right. I mean, and the way the Zohar says it is that, you know, there's a particular palpable experience of the Shekhinah, of divine presence that exists here in a way that it just doesn't, it's not manifest in other places on the planet. And certainly for Jews, but I think anybody, you know, I've a lot of friends that aren't Jewish who come to Israel and they come to Jerusalem, and I don't know if you cannot feel it, not experience something, it's just different. There's a reason why it's like the melting pot of all religions. It's like, you know, you can't go to the old city without running into, you know, every type of spiritual person and path. It is this like major magnet. So very